Hi everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel, Drum Psychology. Thank you so much again for checking this out. And please subscribe to the drum channel if you haven't already and watch the previous videos. Let's dig into this month's episode. This is the April episode, and we're going to talk about a composer named Maurice Ravel. This is a classical composer who's best known for creating the musical piece Bolero. And I'd ask you to check out the music behind Bolero. It's a very interesting, repetitive classical piece. I first heard it on the radio a few years ago, and I guess I was captured because of the snare drum part. The very classic Bolero rhythm that you see there on the board. And I just remember listening to the whole piece on the radio and thinking it would be a really hard thing to play, because it's about a 15-minute classical piece, and the snare drum rhythm that you see here, it's actually a 24-note phrase, but it's repeated 169 times, and then there's an 8-note coda that ends it, and so total there is 4,064 snare drum notes that have to be played with perfect technical precision, very tight control of dynamics, because the piece starts very soft, probably as soft as you can play, like a pianissimo, and then it slowly builds. The piece slowly has a crescendo to it, and it ends up fortissimo. And the Bolero piece was something that I wanted to learn how to play, and so I started looking into websites and seeing people play it. But I will also tell you that I'm not a technical, classically trained percussionist, and in fact I only started listening seriously to classical music a few years ago because my son plays violin, and I would go to his school concerts and they would be playing these classical pieces, and I had no idea what movements were and who these composers were. And it was actually through my son's violin playing that I started exploring a little bit more about classical music and seeing some of the aspects of percussion and drumming that were interesting, which again led me to Ravel's piece Bolero. So let's talk a little bit about who Ravel was as a composer. So he was a French composer, and he was originally going to do Bolero as a ballet, and I believe a Russian group was going to commission him to make Bolero an actual ballet. But if you listen to the piece now, it's very much not a ballet in the classical sense, and it has this sort of driving rhythmic crescendo that makes it very interesting to listen to. Now, Bolero as a classical composition is kind of interesting because of the drum notation that I was talking about just a minute ago. And I'm going to demonstrate the playing of this on the practice pad. I would ask, or I would say that it's probably best to play this on maybe a snare drum to get the technical precision down. But let me demonstrate the actual piece for you as it's played. And most of the things that I've seen, people start up very light, probably as light as you can, playing towards the front of the snare drum. So it might sound something like this. Okay, so it starts up very light, very soft, and then it does actually sort of crescendo, and so you'll hear louder notes come out. And as the piece builds to the end, it probably should be played as fortissimo, so you might try to crescendo it slowly so you eventually get to something like this. And on a snare drum, it might sound even louder and will sort of replicate the piece that Ravel composed. So that's the actual rhythm, and this month what I would like people to do is take on the the challenge of playing it. And let me be real honest with you. I have not played Ravel's piece for 15 minutes and done this correctly without any mistakes. So I'm going to actually personally take it on as a challenge to my playing and something to learn. See what you can do with it. Take the rhythm, start off with it very soft and crescendo it. Play with headphones or something like that to get it to be heard the best, and so you can practice it the best. And see if you can build it up. It might take a month. It might take longer than a month. But I'm going to take on the Bolero challenge this month and work with you on it. If you have questions about it, that would be something you could send me an email about or message me. If you're able to play it and can do it for 15 minutes with no mistakes, I would actually like to see that and watch you play it. So if you want to post videos or upload videos or links to the YouTube site below, that would be fine. I'd love to hear you play it and actually share your performance with everyone else out there. So if you're a drum teacher, this might be something that you can do for your students. Assign them the Bolero rhythm for the month. If you're just a student that would like to learn how to do it, it's a great challenge, like I say, and something that will, I think, give you a lot of confidence and appreciation for other types of music that are out there. Let me end the video segment this month with a little bit of the information about Ravel's brain and his mind. It's fascinating to me from a psychological standpoint that the time in which Ravel made this piece coincided with some severe brain traumas that he experienced. Bolero was actually finished in 1928, and we know that Maurice Ravel started to experience some pretty significant brain abnormalities at that time. He slowly started to lose the ability to speak correctly. He also slowly started to lose the ability to write, and he eventually couldn't speak fluently. He wasn't able to write his own name, and eventually he stopped playing the piano, which he loved to do. These are psychological brain conditions called aphasia and apraxia. Aphasia is the loss of ability to speak, and apraxia is the loss of ability to move limbs and control motor movements. And it's pretty well known now clinically that Ravel experienced these two severe traumas progressively to his brain, and again coinciding with the Bolero piece. Some people speculate that Bolero is a reflection of some of those progressive brain traumas that were going on. Some of his early pieces in music were more complex, more challenging in sort of the richness of the piece. But Bolero is very simple, and it's very repetitive and rhythmic. And some people speculate that that's a reflection of what was going on with the aphasias and the apraxias that were affecting his brain. And from a psychological standpoint, I find that most fascinating because it's a window or sort of an insight into what was happening to him. If you look at other artists and people who have situations happening to their brain, you will find similar situations. For example, the author Agatha Christie, she started to use less words and write more simple sentence structures as her cognitive decline was going on. Some of her later books have been analyzed, and it's actually been shown that she used less words and composed less complex paragraphs. And Agatha Christie ultimately developed dementia, and it may have been a form of Alzheimer's disease that eventually claimed her life. The situation with Ravel, again, was that he had these two brain conditions, apraxia and aphasia, and it primarily affected his left hemisphere, which is a verbal hemisphere. And the right hemisphere has some interesting capabilities such as spatial reasoning, and there's some artistic capabilities. And some people also speculate that the damage to the left hemisphere of the brain may have actually allowed the right hemisphere to continue making music, but in a very different way. Like I said, in a very simple and more repetitive way. So I think that is kind of a fascinating aspect of what might be going on to him psychologically. If you want to learn more about what was going on with Ravel during this time period. I provided some links in my PDF, and I also have a few research articles that actually have investigated this. So if you want to look into the actual studies about what they think has happened to him or what happened to him, you're more than free to explore that, and I'll provide some links for you. So I want to thank you for watching this month's episode. Take on the Bolero challenge during the month of April. See if you can play all 4,064 notes without a mistake. And I'll end with a quote that I really love by Ravel, which talks about this striving to be perfect and to be technically precise, because I think that is actually a very noble and worthy goal for musicians and drummers to be trying to do. His quote is, "The objective, therefore, is technical perfection. I can strive unceasingly to this end, since I am certain never being able to obtain it. The important thing is to get nearer to it all the time." And I like that ending, that the important thing is to get nearer to it all the time. We can't be perfect players, and none of us ever will be. And Ravel wanted his music and his compositions to be as technically precise and as perfect as possible. And he knew that he couldn't get there either, but he was always striving to get as close as he could. And I think that's a very, very good goal to try to achieve in life. So think about those thoughts this month. Please contact me on my email that I'll provide right now on the screen and in the PDF below. Have a good April practicing Bolero, and I'll see you back here next month. Thank you.